welcome back to Gardening in Nakusp. So today we're going to start out in the grow room like we usually do. And the grow room has been changing plants in it. A lot of stuff went out into the greenhouse. We have a whole new batch of things in here. A couple of episodes, or last episode, we talked about the zinnias. So they're growing nicely. And the other thing that we got pricked out on yesterday was the Chinese cabbage and Savoy cabbage. These are a looser cabbage than the big ball cabbages. I like them much better. They don't keep though, so it's kind of a thing that I just plant a few and you enjoy them with stir fries or salads or whatever like that. So here we have this is the Savoy cabbage, which is the crinkly cabbage, a little bit sweeter, quite nice cabbage. And then this is the Chinese cabbage, which is more cylindrical, and again, quite a little bit of a finer leaf, a little bit more crinkly as well too. And then we have the pak choys. There is Joy Choy, which is a little bit bigger, and then the Ming Choy, which is a little bit smaller. And these are wonderful for stir fries or making with like the pak choys are nice for with a gravy over top of not like a beef gravy, but a vegetable gravy over top of rice, that kind of thing. And I plant them always later than the other cabbages because they grow so fast that they would outstrip the pots very soon. Now I would have liked to get these started a little bit earlier than this, but just the way things happen, this is when they got started. But they're fast growing and they're a little bit tricky. Sometimes you get earwigs in them, but we'll see how our crop goes this year, and we'll look forward to having a nice harvest of them. Thanks. So down here we have fennel going, which is a nice herb, and this is the bulb fennel, and it's a really flavorful licorice-like, I guess, vegetable maybe. And then there's arugula, which is a great herb. It's really kind of nutty tasting and adds nice flavor to salads. And then we have basil, green basil and red basil. And I love the red basil for making vinegars. It makes a beautiful pink vinegar with a nice flavor. And again, I would have liked to get these going a little bit earlier, but they're starting now, so that's just the way it is. And we look forward to their growing fast. And over here, over here we just have another variety of cauliflower that I'm trying too. One's called Amazing. So, yeah, because I'd like to have...
amazing cauliflower?
Yes, amazing cauliflower, and a couple crops of them if I can. So if you're short of space, growing in pots is a really good way to go. Now the trick with the pots is to have them large enough. So I wouldn't go with much smaller pots than these.
How big are these, Ray?
These are, I think, a 10-gallon and a 15-gallon. I fill them full of Sunshine No. 4 mix and soil and manure and Gaia Green fertilizer. And I reuse the soil over and over again, and it just gets better and better. So with these guys, I just take a little bit of the soil out, so I have room, and I put some manure and Gaia Green, work that in, and then put my plants in. So you don't waste the soil, you can just reuse it time and again.
Beautiful. What do you have growing here?
So this is eggplant, and it does really well in pots. And this is the south side of the house. There's concrete here, so it's really a warm spot, and they're Mediterranean plants, so they like it really warm. So it's a perfect spot to grow stuff. So you don't even need a garden area here to grow food. You can just grow it right on the sidewalk, right beside your house there. And then I have pots, because it's April 24th, I think, today. We still could have chance of frost. April 27th is going to be full moon. So I have these pots, and I just put them over top of, if I expect frost, I just put them over top of the plant just to protect it from getting damaged by frost.
Great idea.
So you can get your plants out early, and then you get your harvest. The sooner you can get your plants out, as long as they do well, then you can get a harvest earlier. So continuing with our pot theme, these are really nice large pots.
How big are these, Ray?
I think they're about 25 or 30 gallon, I think, something like that.
Pretty big.
Yeah, and when I'm landscaping, I can get large trees in these, and so I always make sure I bring them home because they're wonderful to use. And so over here we have parsley plants, and then these are my little temporary cloches. So if it was, I had this batch out for a while, and you can see it's not very big because I've been picking away at them, using them for salads. But if it looks like it's cold at night, I just tuck this over top. Same thing with like this. Just gather it up.
Genius. Now, lid on, lid off. I'm seeing both.
I did an experiment. Well, actually, it was an accident. One time, I forgot to take this off of a plant, and I had the lid off, and it was a hot day, and I expected my plant to be fried, but it was fine. So enough of the heat went out that it was okay. So I have been using some of these because I only use them at night, and I take them off during the daytime because it's not that cold now. But you could try and use it, like if all of a sudden if you leave them on overnight, then it's fine because the heat seems to go out of there. And over here, I planted dill in here, and if Joe, if you go close by, you can see those seeds. So this is dill for fresh herbs, and you only want to plant a little bit. You don't want to plant a lot because it grows really tall and then gets the flowers on it, and then it's not that good for herbs. So this you want to have it coming low, and then you just snip it off with the scissors, and it's just nice and fresh and young, and it's just great for salads or egg salad sandwiches or potato salad, anything like that. So just start a little batch and then make another little batch in a couple weeks, and just so you have a continuous rotation of fresh dill. Then over here, this is cress or pepper grass. I don't know how many people are familiar with that, but it's a wonderful fresh green, very fast growing, a great addition to salad. And then this again is a salad blend, Health Kick salad blend. So I kind of use it like a mesclun mix. So again, you let it grow, and then it's just short, then you snip them off with the scissors and then throw it in your salads. So none of these things you let grow very big. You just harvest them when they're young and small.
Now, I see the seeds are still on top of the soil. Do you cover them at all?
I do cover them, yes. I just wanted you to see how thick we sowed them.
Oh, yes.
And then there's this nice soil that I took off. So we'll just take this soil and we'll just throw a little layer on top. Now, if it's really hot when I'm doing this in the summertime, I learned a trick from somebody, I can't remember who anymore, but I use a burlap sack, and I put the burlap sack on top of them. So you water them in, and then put the burlap sack on, and then that keeps them nice and moist. Because sometimes when you're doing your carrots take a while to come up, and then they can get dried out on the top. But if you seed them and then put the sack on top, it keeps them nice and moist. It's like a mulch on them. So now if it stays wet and moist like this, I won't worry about it. But if it starts getting hot and sunny again, then I'll get the sacks out and lay a sack over top. And then that'll keep it nice and moist till it comes up. And then just keep checking, and then as soon as you see them starting to pop, then you take the sack off.
Do they go through the sack?
Well, they would, but you don't want them to. You want to just see them come up and then take the sack off.
Okay.
Well, I gotta mention too, unfortunately Gail couldn't be with us today, my sidekick. But Joe's here, and so Joe and I are carrying on. So this is the pepper bed. They're looking a little bit yellow, so I gave them some fish today. I hadn't noticed before, and so I gave them some fish. Has got nitrogen fertilizer in it, so that'll help perk up the color in them.
Is that the same as the seaweed?
Well, it's a liquid fertilizer. The seaweed has less on the nitrogen, phosphorus, potash, but more on the trace minerals. So it's not quite, when I want to get a boost of nitrogen, I use the fish. When I want to get a boost of just general tonic, then I use the seaweed. So we have arugula growing in here as well, because we must take advantage of this nice heat in here. And on a day like today, when we're having this nice rain and kind of cool weather, normally I leave these quite shut, just a little bit of a crack open, just to leave some heat out. But the ones like over here where we have celery and we have the next crop of lettuce, they don't mind the cool weather. So I'm leaving that open just to get the nice rain on there. And again, this one has peppers in it too as well, so that one's closed up. Now the lettuce is ready to harvest. So here we're looking at the lettuce. So as I mentioned before, these are a semi-head lettuce, and I really like them better rather than the iceberg where it's a really solid ball and kind of whitish and green. These are open, and so they're much more greener. And so now I didn't plant a whole lot of these, and we'll eat them quite fast because if it gets too hot and dry, then they can get bitter. So you want to eat them when they're nice and young and fresh. But then there's the next batch growing over there. So once I harvest this one, that one's going to kick in. Now that one I've never grown before. That's asparagus lettuce. And Gail picked up the seeds for me in Chinatown. It's like a fan. So we'll see. It looks kind of long leafed now, but it's supposed to be quite a fan with a sort of a asparagus stalk to it. So we'll watch it mature and see if it turns into that and all. But anyway, what you want to do is you want to have different crops growing. So this is the first crop. There's the second crop. Then I'm going to start some, I think, romaine lettuce in the greenhouse or in the grow room. And then over here gets a little bit of morning sun, but not the hot afternoon sun. So then there'll be the third crop will be over there.
Is that called succession growing?
Exactly, succession planting. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
Cool.
So this is the spinach crop, and we've been harvesting all along the outer leaves, but it's not quite time to harvest the whole thing. I let the leaves to get a little bit bigger and a little fuller so I get a good crop out of it. So we'll just keep feeding it now till it gets a little bit larger. But again, you know, you can be eating them, picking the side leaves. Over there you can see where we picked it a little bit more, this little bit smaller plants. But yeah, so you can enjoy it all spring, and then once they get to maturity, then you can harvest them and get them in the freezer.
Those are enormous.
So over here, another favorite spring crop is the green onions and the radishes, great for salads. So I'm going to be taking some of the soil out of here so I can mix some more manure in. And it's a little bit rooty over here, you can see. So I'm going to take the shovel to it and dig down quite deep and try to loosen those roots up, because nothing likes to compete with those roots when they're just starting out. So the green onions, you can buy sets like these, the multipliers, so what I usually do is I use some of these just for fast growth, and then I use the seeds, which you can buy in the seed tape if you want something very handy, or you can buy in the loose seeds. And you just make those into a row, and then you get nice greens coming up. It takes a while because they're from seed and not from the bulbs, but they're very economical. And the other crop is the radishes. And again, you can get the loose seeds, the seed tape, and nowadays they have, like this is Rito red radishes, and there's all kinds of really fancy, nice French breakfast radishes. So you can have great additions to your salad, nice and colorful. So people that are familiar with Japanese gardens, this is called a Tsukubai. And usually it's the entrance to a garden or maybe to a tea house. And when you come in, you wash your hands in it. And normally you'd be standing up and washing your hands and also bowing at the same time, showing your reverence for the garden. I use it as a ceremonial bowl. If somebody's married or somebody passes away, I put flowers in. Now, Teresa, the friend that's staying with me, just likes to decorate with flowers, so she just put some flowers in for now. No special occasion, just celebrating spring. And it's hard to see in here now, but it's a beautiful bowl that has fish carved in the bottom there. And I haven't cleaned it out lately, so it's hard to see them, but at some point we'll clean it out and then we'll show you the fish that are carved in the bottom. So here we have the onions, and these were the ones that we started from seed in the flats. And Gail came over yesterday and helped me plant them out. So they actually did really well. They're nice, stocky little plants, and had nice little roots to them. So we have white onions, red onions, and shallots here. And shallots is a new thing. They didn't used to have seeds for them. You used to have to buy the sets to get the shallots going. But a few years ago, somehow they developed that you could start them from seed. So that's great, because the French shallots are a nice gourmet onion, and it's nice if you can buy cheaper seeds to plant them. And you can see now, you kind of gauge, okay, the onion's gonna grow like this. So we kind of maximized our space, because you don't want to waste space, because there's just so much room in the garden. So you kind of plant the plant appropriate to how large you think it'll get. And you can also, if it looks like if they're doing really well and it's getting a bit close, you're always harvesting some in the summertime anyway, so you can just harvest the ones in between. So these are the little onion sets over here. And then there's some more over this side here, as well as the leeks. And the leeks are a little bit different. The onions grow on top of the ground, so you don't plant them very deep, and then the bulb grows on top. A little bit in the ground, but mostly on top. But the leeks, you want the white part. And so we made a bit of a trench here, and then as they grow, we'll start filling them in. And usually I use a bit of manure and the soil, because I want them to grow quite large. And Janet Spicer grows wonderful leeks. I don't know how she gets them so big. Mine are not that big, but I'm happy with what I get, because you can make potato leek soup. It's just wonderful. And you can even leave them in the ground over the winter time, and then you got some fresh onion material in the spring. So this is my asparagus patch. This is one of the first things I put in, because it takes a while to get the asparagus. You need 3 or 4 years in order to get a good crop. But now I've got a great crop. Unfortunately, my area, this is quite snowy here because of the trees across the way here. The snow goes quite late, so they're not up yet. But I'm going to use this time now to fertilize them. And I just cover them with this nice leaf and straw mulch. So I'm just going to work the fertilizer in and scratch it in, and I'll put some more mulch on top. Because they're heavy growers, so they're heavy feeders. So I like to give them lots of food so they grow well.
Are these old asparagus?
Yeah, those are the old asparagus.
Wow.
And people don't realize, you know, once you finish picking your crop in the spring, then you let them grow, they can get quite large. They can, you know, be 3 to 4 feet tall. So it makes a nice hedge here, giving you nice privacy later on.
How tall do they grow in a day?
Well, actually, they grow once they start, they grow really fast. I like to pick them when they're small, like about so, but if you missed a couple of days, all of a sudden you come out and they're quite tall. So then I usually harvest them, and then I bend them, and then you get rid of the woody stem. You just want the fresher part, the fresh top part.
They tend to break off at the appropriate point?
That's right, yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
So we mentioned in the last video about beds, and I was trying to think back to the book that got me clued into the bed system. I think it was called The Square Foot Gardening. And Gail looked it up, and I guess it's in its 3rd printing or 3rd edition now. So it's still current, and you still get a copy. And they even have, she said they have even a template on there where you can lay the template on the ground, and then you can put your seeds in the different holes. So I'm not quite sure how that works, but it'd be something to... So again, these are cabbages, so they'll get quite large. So we do kind of a grid method. So I put 2, and then 1, and then 2. If I would put 1 and 1 here, then it'd be kind of too close together, so I use this triangle method in order to get the maximum amount of plants in the smallest area. And as I mentioned before, there could be a frost. April 27th is full moon, but because of the mulch around them, it's easy for me to just lay, I have these little tarps, and I just lay a little tarp over top, put a couple bags on just to keep them in place, just to keep the frost off of them. So this is the cabbages and broccolis and red cabbage and Brussels sprouts. And the peas aren't up yet. We're waiting for them to come. They were in last week, so we're looking forward to them up. And once in a while you see a little seed popped up, so you can just push that down.
How many peas did you plant?
125 grams, I believe. So people that grew up at the coast will probably know this plant. This is Stinging Nettle, and actually does give you a little bit of a sting. But I really like it. It's such a great plant. It's blood cleanser. And I like to use it in the springtime as a green. I've had wonderful, Aunt Jemiah, a woman that lived down past me in Slocan Park, made a wonderful borscht, spring borscht out of the Stinging Nettle. And it was just excellent taste. And you can dry it for teas. You can mix it with spinach in spanakopita. And it's only good for a little while in the spring. After that, you don't want to be eating it. But I harvest quite a bit of it and try to keep it short and young as long as possible. You can see how it spreads, so it's got that drawback to it. But this is kind of a rooty spot here because of all these trees. And not a lot of stuff grows here really well. So I think I'm just going to give it over to my Stinging Nettle in this patch. I'll just kind of keep it centered in this area here.
When does it stop stinging? When you cook it? When you...
Yes, if you cook it, it doesn't sting anymore. When we were kids, we used to put mud on ours, and I don't know what is. Anyway, that seemed to help.
Mud?
Mud, yes.
Was it delicious?
You just slap it on your sting.
Oh,
and
on
then,
the sting.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And some people say that it helps arthritis if you use it for the sting. I'm not sure about that, but anyway, that's one of the tales.
I heard that too, actually.
Yeah. So one of the earliest crops that is harvestable is rhubarb. And I guess it's technically a vegetable. And I think most people are familiar with it, but you just, once it gets large, you just pick it, and then these stems here is what you make your rhubarb pie. I'm really fond of rhubarb crisps, but maybe we can, Sharon is such a pie maker, maybe we can get her to give us her tips for making rhubarb pie.
Yes, please.
So this is the old-fashioned Brunera, just the green-leafed one. And it kind of reminds me of, the plant reminds me of forget-me-nots because of the way it spreads. So you can see how I have little pieces around here. So I'm going to go through the garden in a while and just take out some of the superfluous varieties here, and I'm going to move them to probably on Broadway underneath the maple trees where it's hard to grow stuff. And this is a tough plant, so that'll be great for in that tough conditions there. It's not my favorite Brunera. The favorite is Jack Frost. So if you're looking for a Brunera, I'd recommend getting the Jack Frost variety. And maybe we'll do a shot of, I have some growing over there. They're in a snowy place though, so they're not so big. But it has a beautiful leaf, nice silver leaf, and looks attractive all year round. These guys are great for the spring, and then after that they just make nice background plants. This is the wild flowering currant, Ribey sanguinium. So people that live in the woodland area, this is a great shrub for them because it can handle some shade. And I just love it. I grew up at the coast, and it was a native plant down there. And wherever I move to, I usually try to plant one in my garden just because it's a beautiful spring color. And unfortunately, it's cool and wet today, so the bees aren't out, but the bees love these little flowers. So if you're looking for something to feed the bees with, it's a great plant for that. Then just beside it, so plants have their preferences. Some like dry, some like wet. So this is a marsh plant. So you can see the water here in this little bowl. So this is a marsh marigold. And it comes in single like this, or I used to have the double. And I think that variety was called Planiflora. Lots of flowers. And I believe it comes in white form as well too. And there are areas in North America where it grows wild in the marsh areas. So if you happen to have a bog or marshy area on your property, you're very lucky because there's a lot of wonderful flowers you can grow in there that you can't grow on dry land.